Welcome to the PokéSphere. Today's episode, Switch to Shadow Drop. Today's talk about the PokéSphere is regarding the Shadow Drop Switch 2. We got treated to a surprise / not really of the Nintendo Switch 2 console. And there were quite a few little Easter eggs hidden through there. I'm sure that many of you have already seen other content creators who have shown videos and stuff. So we're just going to give our 2 bits on this and ideas of potential things on the future. So, of course, here we are waking up in our respective worlds, and all of a sudden I'm looking at my phone and my Twitch has blown up, Discord has blown up, and I'm like, what's going on? And Nintendo just nonchalantly just dropped this 2.5-minute long trailer talking about their Switch 2 console. And I had to chuckle because at the time when we recorded it, I had brought up the fact that the CES conference was going on and a lot of peripheral makers were already showing off their peripherals for the Switch 2 with the Switch 2 logo on it and everything. And not more than 4 days later comes out this trailer, and I had to laugh because you knew it was coming. You kind of had to figure it was coming if you knew about that particular conference. And so it opens up with them showing the OG Switch. Right off the bat, they pulled the handhelds off and the screen just gets bigger. So now we already know firsthand that the screen is going to be about an inch bigger for the Switch 2, which had been rumored for months. We even did a video covering a Chinese YouTuber where she 3D printed this thing out, and almost point for point, she had the files.
See, that's the thing, right? You know what is interesting about that? So after that, and after Genki showed off their cases at CES, Nintendo apparently turned around and said, no, those aren't accurate models. And then Genki sent off the model that they had, obviously for their demo purpose or whatever, to another YouTuber called Beat'em-Ups, who does a lot of Nintendo stuff. So they sent him the files and he 3D printed out the Switch 2. And it was exactly the same as what is being shown in the trailer.
Wild.
I honestly think Nintendo just got sick of everyone but them talking about their new system, and they had to give us something before everything was beat to the punch.
You're not the first person to say that. I was listening to the guys over at Gimme Ghoul Radio, and Unseelie King had mentioned that this was probably a panic drop. They were hoping to hold it till April, because the next trailer we're not gonna get until April.
I don't believe it was a panic drop just because of some of the things that were actually hinted at. One of them is highly speculative, and one of them is blaring right in our face. I mean, it's right on DK's brow.
I beg to differ because normally for this could have been essentially quite a big event for them, this trailer. They were probably gonna look at hyping it up, or at least throwing out some kind of announcement beforehand. But this did just come out of nowhere. So I think they're trying to save face and wait. Or trying to save face, waiting, and potentially risking more details leaking. One of the details that leaked that was kind of mind-blowing, we'll see shortly on in the trailer, and I'll go into a bit more, came out, and then all of a sudden about a week later they just dropped the trailer out of the way. And that detail had never been shared before or leaked before.
He's talking about being an LCD screen, though.
Oh yeah, not 100%.
I just had to throw something in. Like, the screen is bigger. Do we know if it's an OLED, or are they going back to the LCD or the LED?
We're not 100% sure. There's been speculation that because of the price point, it'll probably be an LCD and not an OLED. But again, it's the speculated price point. So I don't remember on the specs if it came out saying that they were going to be an LED or an OLED.
In terms of like them releasing it based on, or the fact that the prototype exists, today and age, we face a problem where, things get leaked like nobody's business, and that's becoming much more common. So I believe dropping that shadow drop was just what they had to do at this point. That's my feeling towards it.
I guess Nintendo couldn't get a hold of the Mario Brothers because these leaks running rampant for their plumbers. But for real though, I mean, I think the shadow drop, I kind of agree with like the panic drop thing a little, because it makes sense. But then again, I think they had it coming because we were gonna get the announcement anyways. If they wanted to, I think Nintendo could have just been like, hey, you know what? you guys know, here it is. More information later. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I've like I said, this just felt weird, and it runs back to something that you had said last year, Chase, was the delay in the announcement for the Switch 2 caused a whole bunch of stuff to just get reshifted and shuffled, which is why we had that weird Pokemon Direct last year. Them officially announcing that there is a Switch 2 leads to a whole bunch of things that I've been speculating on for over a year now about the release schedule for the next couple of games for Pokemon, which we're just around the corner about finding out by the time this video drops.
I do believe that one of the first special edition consoles, Switch 2 consoles, is going to be a Pokemon one, and it's going to be the Legend ZA one. And the timing of the next Nintendo Direct or Presents or whatever they call it now is actually a bit odd, and I hadn't thought about this before, and I think it sort of strengthens my theory on PLZA Special Edition. It's Pokemon Day is on the, I think, 27th or the 28th.
27th.
So my thing, the special edition Switch, well, his is the Switch 2. What if the ZA is the last special edition Switch 1 instead? It sounds kind of gruddy for the marketing, but it would be a way of pushing those sales of the Switch 1 for that special edition in anticipation for the Switch 2, where usually that would drop off nasty. We've gotten a lot of things that are saying that ZA is nothing to do with Switch 2. And I feel like that might actually be the case. And then we'll see Gen 10 make its appearance on Switch 2.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a weird one, because saying that, you know, it's an original Switch game or Switch 1 game, whatever, however you want to refer to it as, is a bit sort of misleading, because obviously, as we'll see later in the video, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible. So it could be a bridging game.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's where they're going with that. Now, before we move on, just want to remind our viewers, we do have a Discord. Feel free to come down, join, check us out. Hang out. It's pretty quiet, but everyone here likes to talk, banter, trade, get together to do rage trades, play just whatever. We're also on Twitter, and make sure to share, like, and subscribe on the video. Let us know how we're doing, and we're going to keep on rolling along. I mean, they show the transition on the outside. They show the way the connectors are now going to be set up on the side. They show you the USB-C port on the top. So you've got your power button, you've got your volume control, and then you've got this little dot right there. And I'm trying to figure out what that could be.
It's actually an interesting thing. I was watching another YouTuber, Player Essence, I think, and then he referenced like that little circle button thing or whatever that could be to like another YouTuber. I think he was like a game developer. What's his name? I think it was like Sun Coast Productions or something like that. He has like this whole video of like what that could be. He's like, oh, maybe that could be like a camera little thing for like certain games or something. And I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen the video, but yeah, he has like a whole video about it.
You know what that little circle actually looks like? I don't know if any of you guys had the Samsung Galaxy S4 phones, and a big feature of that was the IR transceivers that they had, so you could essentially use them as TV remotes and stuff. That looks to be almost exactly what those looked like.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be AR.
The Dream Radar game.
And then, you know, we move forward a little bit. You see the cooling fans. You see another USB-C slot on the top, which makes people wonder, you know, if you can charge it from the top or the bottom or plug in something else. Because I know the Switch Up has an option for you to plug it into the USB-C port. But then if you've got to charge your Switch, you can't. If this is a charging port as well, would allow you to use either port then, which is kind of cool. And of course, you see the headphone jack next to it, as well as the slot for the game cards.
One interesting thing about the Type-C that supports it's going to be for peripherals is why not? I understand that you can't have it propped up and like having it standing while charging when it's on the bottom, so that's enough reason to move it to the top, but why have both? There must be something with the peripherals like you mentioned. Takes us back to our old school childhood days.
DS is coming back, baby!
And then of course they show you the cradle, the kickstand for it, and I like the fact that you can stand it up with a full kickstand. What I am concerned is how far back that thing sweeps.
Yeah, I don't like that kickstand.
That kickstand worries me.
Yeah, I think the one that they had for the OLED was better still.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to get a lot of wear and tear, and if you use it at those sharper angles, it's eventually not going to hold up at a more standing. I don't like the kickstand on mine, and I usually lean my Switch against other stuff when I'm using screen and controller. So I kind of like that it gives you the other things if it doesn't wear and tear.
for me, I'm probably just gonna leave my Switch docked anyways. So it's just gonna like quicksand ain't gonna matter to me for most of the time, maybe like 90% of the time.
So if we're talking mechanical wise for the Switch, I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this. Quite frankly, and being 100% transparent, I'm not really wowed by the Switch 2. I just feel like it's more of the same, just slight upgrades. It doesn't really entice me, or it doesn't draw me in to get another console. You know what I mean? It feels like I'm gonna have two of the same thing, essentially. So even though the upgrades are nice, I don't really feel like it's that much of an improvement. Plus, the other thing I was discussing with a friend of mine was recently there was what was that called? That
The CES?
yeah. So them bringing out all these new advances it's just crazy. We're talking about how obviously how that'll improve a lot of things in the world of technology, but also in the world of consoles, gaming, everything. So maybe, like, this is just me, I think now is not the time to look at things like the Switch 2, but expecting the next generation of consoles that are to come with all these advancements. That's sort of where I'm at.
Well, I do agree with you there. I mean, Nintendo isn't the only company in the handheld market anymore. I mean, you've got, if we want to stick to consoles, you've got the PlayStation Portal, which just recently, and I use recently very loosely, it was the past couple of months, I can't remember exactly when, but the Portal got an update so that it didn't need to be linked to a PS5 to be able to play the games. And even that, although it's cloud gaming, it runs phenomenally well. So what the Switch 2 is now, in my eyes, is what the OLED should have actually been, because in my mind, it does feel more like sort of a mid-gen enhancement rather than a new cutting-edge console that they brought out.
Now, to be fair though, we still don't have the official release on specs. We're only running on rumors and speculations based on people who claim to be leaking information on the console system. Now, of course, that being said, a lot of the quote-unquote leaked information turned out to be fairly accurate, but until it's officially released, we're not going to know dead set 100% that what we've been hearing is what is actually going to be released. For all we know, there were basically specs for a Switch Pro that just never got utilized, and what we're seeing is the shell of what would have been the Switch Pro, but the guts inside could be something that's going to be even stronger than what originally was intended. So I just want to throw that out there as just a precaution.
There might also be some things hiding that we're not realizing. Like you said, we don't have any of the specs. They just kind of gave us a little tease of things, and there's a lot of speculation around the community about exactly the way they chose to display or present certain aspects of this that we'll get into as we delve deeper into this trailer.
So then we get into the Joy-Cons, and of course, right off the cuff, one of the things that we notice is that the Joy-Con is bigger, the layout's a little bit easier on your hands. There's an additional button on the right Joy-Con, which is completely solid. We don't know what that button does. And of course, they move right into the close-ups of things. And then of course, you can see here that there is not only a C button and another button off past the shoulder, but you also have your SL buttons, your SR buttons. You've got your what looks like it's either a power button or a connection button. I mean, I like the fact that they did kind of do the whole 360. You can see how the whole thing kind of looks, how it's going to most likely operate. The wiggle of the joystick, which, dear gods, let's hope that they did fix that Joy-Con issue.
I'm hearing a lot of where they're going with the Hall effect, which I do believe our good Chase has covered in previous episodes.
Basically, the Hall effect components they just use magnets and the resistance that the magnets give to determine the positioning of the stick. So there's not really any components that can wear out like on the traditional joysticks that use the graphite connections.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I mean, not having Joy-Con drift right there is kind of selling me on the idea of buying this as a new console. just so I can play handheld without having a whole other control.
And I guess the big, like, they do the splash of color, which I think is kind of nice. It does kind of separate the old Joy-Cons with the new Joy-Cons, but you still get that Nintendo feel of whimsy.
Very barely. I've heard a lot of people saying that they wish it had more color, like the over black thing feels very much like they're copying some of the other handheld existing consoles.
Meat and potatoes here is this part where they slap on what looks like supposed to be the wrist strap and restraints, but then they show the Joy-Cons gliding on a surface, and of course this alludes to the whole mouse functionality, which kind of brings me to wonder what game or games are we gonna need mouse functionality for? It would be great if we had mouse functionality for something like Pokemon Home, where I don't have to constantly keep hitting left, right, up, down, left, right, B, B, A. Okay, okay, now I gotta move this one over here. Like, it would be so much easier if I had a mouse to just organize all of my stuff on Home. But outside of that, I can't really factor any kind of gamer innovation that would necessitate a mouse, let alone two.
So here's the answer about the conversation that I jumped in before we started recording about Chase talking about his preference when playing a game, whether he uses console or if he does a controller, or if he uses mouse and keyboard. And I think that if these do act as mice, especially if you can use a joystick on one while the other acts as a mouse input, that kind of homogenizes and brings the best of both worlds between a controller input and the keyboard and mouse input. In terms of shooting games, adventure games, this also allows more Steam games to be ported over without having to do a different interface. This might actually be something huge.
Yes, this also brings into question the speculation that have been going on. And I mean, we've heard these speculations a lot about Microsoft wanting to branch out and bring Xbox games to the Switch. I mean, we've been this for years, but now it could be a real possibility, and it could have FPS shooters on the Switch. So this might just be a way to facilitate those players.
Jay, I know you play a lot of FPS. What are your thoughts of the possibility of that? I mean, I've played Wolfenstein, I've played Doom with controllers. I've never had an issue. It's not the same as, mouse and keyboard, obviously, for me, but I've never really had an issue swapping between the two. What about you? What are your thoughts on this?
To be honest with you, I'm not really a PC gamer. Sorry, PC Guads.
I have failed you as an older brother, sir.
It's not that I don't want to, it's the fact that just my machine can't really run anything, and it's not what I'm dedicating it for. So it's not that I wouldn't game on PC, it's just I can't. So my main experience when it comes to games like FPSs have been always on a controller, never mouse and key. But I don't know. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying it almost, like, at this point in time, it almost seems semi-sacrilegious to play an FPS on Switch. I don't know, call me crazy. But whenever you talk about FPSs in the general community, I feel like mine tend to gravitate towards other consoles, wink wink. Again, not saying that the Switch, the Switch 2 wouldn't have the capability to do so. I'm just feeling like it's more of a cultural thing at this point, and getting minds to shift over into playing FPSs on something that's not really recognized for it could prove a little bit difficult. So we're just gonna have to see what the general consensus is once the Switch 2 drops.
I'm trying to position my hand right now, as if I was maybe holding one of these Joy-Con controllers, and I feel it's gonna be really uncomfortable to actually use it as maybe less so as a mouse, but then more so if you're gonna use it to play an FPS, maybe. I don't know, that's just me, but it seems like it'd be uncomfortable. I've seen those mice that they have that's kind of what is it? They're kind of like sideways mice, or yeah, they're it's like sideways or something, right? I can't even imagine myself using that, honestly. So I don't even know how the Joy-Con would feel.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I'm looking at the video, and the positioning of the two top buttons looks relatively close enough so that you can rest your pointer and index and middle finger in over those two buttons to do your left click, right click. My bigger concern is the thinness of the body of the Joy-Con. I mean, the length of it looks like it would rest in your hand rather nicely if you're using it in mouse mode, but the width of it is rather narrow, which means you're not going to have the same kind of grip on a Joy-Con that you would on a mouse. And I think that, for me, is the big issue with using it like this.
I was gonna say, has anyone ever tried playing any Sims game on a console? How far did you get?
It worst experience of my life.
Exactly. Now imagine if you could do the better parts of that, and then just, oh look, now I have a mouse to move things and do all the design work. Better interface, old school game on a new school system, you could do so much. Same with like Animal Crossing. I could see a new Animal Crossing using this feature very well as well too.
But
Mhm.
you know, you guys talking about FPSs and other games. I mean, there's a lot of other games where if you had a mouse mode, it would be more fun to play. Games like XCOM, for example, like where your positioning is important. If you can just move your Switch to point to a location and go, I want you here, as opposed to having to tap left, 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 up, 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 and then position. I mean, I think you would get a lot more enjoyment. So yeah, I can kind of definitely see what you guys are talking about, being able to port other games over. I'm just hoping that it's new games that utilize this well and not something that's a one-trick pony like a certain Nintendo game that came out and died, and another Nintendo peripheral that pretty much, you know, ground down a whole small forest for nothing.
Nintendo are known for making accessories or peripherals, whatever you want to call them, out of cheap nonsense and selling them as a premium product. I'm looking at you there, Labo.
Yeah, I was kind of low key
But, I mean-
pointing that one out.
Yeah, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for them to create essentially just like a hunk of plastic that the Joy-Con just slots into, so it gives a more comfortable grip.
So I'm actually playing with one of my Switch 1 Joy-Cons right now with the idea. Trying to have a finger for either one of the shoulder buttons is actually very difficult, but if it rests on the table and I don't have to support it in the air, I can use my index finger to use the shoulder buttons. Well, I still have access, at least I'm using the plus side for reference. I have access to those 4 input buttons as well, which would be very awesome for like hotkey things in game while you're doing point and click, and you can use those just like a gaming mouse. The more I think about this, the more this is actually seeming like a very exciting idea. And my Joy-Con, being the Switch 1 being smaller, doesn't really feel too uncomfortable, as it just kind of, I don't have to support it. The table's doing all the work.
So, you know, one of the big concerns that I had when we heard about the magnetic attaching for the Joy-Cons onto the main base was the potential of free fall if you happen to jerk the system hard enough. But it looks like Nintendo actually did address that very issue. When you watch them plug the Joy-Cons in, there's a scene very briefly, but if you pause the video just right, you're going to see that there's a small notch at the bottom of the Joy-Con, the part that goes into the system, and it looks like it might be a hook and lock system. So basically you hook the bottom in first, and as the top part attaches, that's what the magnetic lock is for, and you can't unlock it unless you hit the little button that's on the back side of that, which they did show earlier, to disengage that magnet. Every time they've taken on and taken off the Joy-Cons from the system, it's always been bottom goes in first, top comes out first.
Oh, that clicking sound. I love that new clicking sound.
I mean, overall, the system size looks great. It is bigger. Kind of curious what the battery life is going to be. The power output of the system in handheld mode versus docked mode, because allegedly we're looking at the fact that when docked, it's supposed to be stronger. It's supposed to be close to the PS4 Pro, which would be great for Nintendo if this thing came out like 3 years ago.
That also brings up a question in my camp, if there's going to be certain games that you're only going to be able to play while it's docked as opposed to handheld.
Well, games like Just Dance have to be docked. You can't play them on the handheld version, so that's going to most likely be a yes. I should know, my wife is an avid Just Dance player. Well, no, you could play it. It doesn't have to be docked, but you have to have the Joy-Cons disconnected. So, in a sense, you still can't play it in handheld mode. But yeah, you see these buttons on the side that are sticking out?
Yeah.
Those are most likely the safety buttons to disengage the locking mechanism on the system. You have to push those in to disengage the magnetic lock if this is all still held up by magnets.
It's going to be so much nicer than the small buttons we've got now to take the Joy-Cons out.
That's the other thing too, though. Like, I've heard about some people having fears about, like, like how the middle part that's on the Switch that connects to the indentation in the Joy-Con controllers. People were saying, like, oh, this is pretty scary. What if this thing breaks and whatnot? And I'm like, I don't know. When I look at it, it's like, I don't think that thing's gonna break easily. If anything, that part that's sticking out of your Joy-Con controller would probably have to break first before that thing breaks, from what it seems like.
You're talking about the little slot that sticks out. I mean, unless you're shoving something into that space, they should be fine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, I don't think that's gonna break that easily, if anything. Like, that thing looks like, oh, it's only gonna have like one place to go into, and that's your Joy-Con controller. And then, like, it looks like it's also like deep enough into the system where I don't think like any random thing, unless you're actually sticking something else in there, pencil or something, or a pen, I don't know, and then you're like trying to break, then I don't see like any problems. Like, I feel like your controller would break first before you break those things sticking out. So.
Agreed. They go through a lot of testing, before they even release something like that, prototypes and such. So, as long as people use as intended, then, you should be fine. Of course, there's accidents, but hey, accidents happen.
What significance do you guys think that it even has that? Like, the fact that the original Switch ones didn't need that they were just kind of a Bluetooth connection, and now these need to be hardwired into the system. I've never suffered any sort of input lag on my Joy-Cons other than drift issues. So I'm not sure what this is going to solve or what this might bring to the table.
The biggest issue that they're trying to address here is if you accidentally smack your Switch against something on the Joy-Cons, that little clip that holds it in actually just breaks, and you can just push your Joy-Con in and out without having to disengage that clip with the button. And that had potential to cause quite a few issues. So I think them essentially doing what Lenovo Legion Go did, because it's the same connector, I think that's just for safety and longevity of Joy-Cons, so that there's no small fiddly bits that have to be replaced if someone just accidentally whacked.
And of course, towards the end, they decide they're going to just show it off the system playing a game. And the game has been pretty much... Everyone's pretty much on the bandwagon of this is Mario Kart 9. And the telltale sign is the fact that there are 6 slots in 4 different positions for a whopping 24 kart racer, which I have questions. Not so much as the game, because honestly, Mario Kart 8 has been out for forever. They have DLC'd the ever-living crap out of it. Mario Kart 9 was an inevitability. But my big question is the Wi-Fi on this system. I mean, look, Switch 2, it's a great little system. It was a nice little handheld. It did its job great, but the wireless connection for Switch 2, for the Switch, was abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. I couldn't play Smash on it because of how laggy it was. And so I never tried running Wi-Fi anything other than Pokemon on Switch. And so this leads me to wonder, what is the Wi-Fi speed for the system coming in, especially when you're talking about being able to hold up to 24 racers simultaneously. But that said, the very low-key plug of, hey, here's Mario Kart 9, was kind of a surprise. Nobody expected to see that announcement inside of this announcement.
I only recently bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I say recently, but it was more like maybe a year and a half ago. I had fun with it. It's fine. So seeing that this is more than likely going to be Mario Kart 9, and seeing that it's going to take up, like it may have the possibility for 24 players, I'm a little bit excited to see what they do. I mean, if you can do 24 players racing, maybe we'll have like 8 players playing the balloon game. We'll knock each other out. Sure, why not? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I have to agree at that point. I mean, it's classic. It's classic. Mario Kart is just one of those games that you just have to have in your repertoire of games. I feel like it's a perfect party game. It's It's perfect to just kick back, relax with a couple of friends, and have a good time. So I feel like it was to be expected. Let's put it that way, to be expected.
1/3 of the entire gameplay of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was absolutely wasted, and that gameplay was called 200cc. You guys are looking at the 24-player kart thing way wrong. The fact that we're going to get maps that are actually designed to host 24 players, look at how wide that straightaway is. The fact that you can now actually have enough road to maintain control at 200cc, even if it's not with 24 players, even if it's with the 12, 6, or 8 players. This might actually make 200cc kart races absolutely viable game setting. It might bring a whole other dimension to the meta. And this is actually an idea not of my own, but when it comes to Mario Kart stuff, I frequently watch JP Givener. JPG! Shout out right there. If you guys are ever in it, he's very fun to watch. Just a quick shout out there, because I absolutely do enjoy him. Just like I said, the idea that we're going to get bigger tracks that are going to be more fun at faster races, even when you don't have 24 friends in your life, because I don't know if I do anymore, it's going to be a lot more fun. I wish that 200cc was more viable in Mario Kart 8, and I'm looking forward to actually having that third of the gameplay back.
This is an interesting game that they could pair with the Switch too, because every other Nintendo console has had its own dedicated Mario Kart game, except for the Switch, because Mario Kart 8 on the Switch is just a port from the Wii U. So it's quite interesting that they left it so late to bring, the Switch its own Mario Kart. Whatever they decide to call this Mario Kart, because knowing Nintendo, it's probably not going to be Mario Kart 9, it'll probably be Mario Kart Millennium or something. It'd be interesting to see what it's like and how it plays, especially if those grid boxes do actually indicate that you can have 24 players in a race. And like X was saying, I actually can't wait to see how it plays on 200cc, because that is my favorite way to play Mario Kart, is just balls to the wall, go as fast as you can.
So I got to point something out. You can see they've got karts. You can see that they've got the motorcycles again. And I'm like, yay! I actually enjoyed that part. And full disclosure, I never picked up 8. I haven't owned a Mario Kart in a while, but I have been playing a few of them whenever I go to friends' houses who have Switches. They've picked it up. I picked up Smash. But that said, my question is, you've got the karts, you've got the ATV, you've got the motorcycle. What the hell is Rosalina driving? Why is she on a snowmobile?
They're introducing tricycles?
No, she's on a snowmobile. Everyone's got wheels. She's on a snowmobile.
Whoever's playing Rosalina just doesn't know the meta. That's all I'm gonna say.
Actually wondering if we're gonna actually have boards where there's full of snow, where vehicles like Rosalina's snowmobile is gonna have better traction and grip over the motorcycles and the karts.
That's just like 8 with the anti-grav. It was hidden stats. Certain karts actually had higher anti-grav, certain ones had higher underwater, and certain ones had better normal road. So that would be cool to add another few variables to that whole concept. And also, Chases, whoever's playing Rosalina doesn't know the meta, otherwise she'd be on a Wiggler.
Wiggler isn't the meta anymore, it's the teddy buggy.
So check this out. I'm looking at this, all right? So you got Rosalina on a snowmobile, you've got Yoshi on a motorcycle, you've got Bowser on the ATV, you've got Mario and Luigi on karts, Toad on a cart, Peach on a motorcycle, Daisy's in a boat.
What? Is that a boat?
Look at the front of her car. She's got wheels in the back and a boat in the front. She's like the mullet of Mario Kart.
No, maybe she's just a fossil Pokemon from Galar.
This is wild. I might actually have to pick this one up, because I will be picking up a Switch 2. When? Don't exactly know.
There's a lot of rumors that Special Edition is going to be a Mario Kart 1, Draco.
I like the fact that they did redo DK to mirror the Mario movie.
I'll be honest, I don't actually like it. I think it makes him look a bit off-putting.
I honestly don't think he looks like the Mario movie one. I feel like his eyes are too close together. Like, I feel like they just have like a black strip for his stuff, and then they just like kind of glued his eyes together or something. Like, that's what it looks like to me from the angle. So I don't, and it's been a while since I've seen the Mario movie, so I'm not entirely sure, but it looks kind of odd.
Look at Daisy. Look at her cart. She's got a wheel in there, but it looks almost like a boat.
I'm telling you, it's tricycles. One.
Sometimes you gotta get the boat. Not the mystery box. You just gotta get the boat,
But yeah, so that's been the review of the Switch 2 reveal trailer, and of course the low key, hey, look, it's Mario Kart 9. So they're saying it's going to come out this year. So obviously, most likely going to be the holiday season. It's going to be the big seller.
Pokemon before.
Yeah. But of course, the most important thing, and the one thing that has basically kept Nintendo in the console fight, has been the fact that it's almost always been, to some extent, backwards compatible with the previous system. The Game Boy Color was backwards compatible with the Game Boy, with the original Game Boy. The Advance was backwards compatible with the Game Boy Color and Game Boy games. Then as you move forward, every iteration was always backwards compatible with the previous. Even the Wii, which was backwards compatible with the GameCube game, and the Wii U was backwards compatible with both. The Wii U, if you got it early enough, was also backwards compatible with the GameCube and the Wii games. So Nintendo has always had this whole thing with keeping backwards compatibility, and I think it's one of the reasons why they've been able to stay in the market for as long as they have. And the Switch 2 will also be joining those ranks of consoles where you can play Switch 1 games on this new console. So, I mean, I for one am glad to see that they're keeping to this. This is one of the things that makes me keep coming back to Nintendo, because I'm a physical guy. I'm a physical media kind of guy. So being able to play my old cartridges on the new system is just going to make it that much more enticing for me to purchase.
This also allows young adults and stuff that can't really afford a whole new system, situations like GameStop and stuff like that. This will allow them to still be able to trade in their original Switch in order to help get that cost for the new system down without having to sacrifice the ability to play the games that they've grown to love on the Switch.
I love the fact that Nintendo is making it backwards compatible, because me too, like, I do have a bigger plethora of physical games for the Switch than I do digital. Oh, actually, maybe now digital has more now, but for me. But yeah, so I do like that aspect. I think they said digital games too, I think, are going to be compatible regardless, right? Instead of just the physical copies. So that's good. That's always good. Like, backwards compatibility was always like the greatest thing. Like, I remember when like the PS3, the original PS3, was able to play PS2 games. Then they had the new one come out and like, oh no, now you can't do that. PS4 didn't really have a way to play PS3 games, as far as I know, at least not physical copies. And then like the PS5 came out, I was like, hey guys, you can play your old PS4 games here, or at least the majority of them, or like a good chunk of them. So like it's always good to have that backwards compatibility, because it's like I don't have to keep like my old console in order to play like these older games, you know. Well, I mean, in the more current era anyways, so this is a big plus for Nintendo. Yeah.
And of course, they did say that come April 2nd is when we're going to be getting our next installment of information for the Switch, 2 itself. And with that, brings our episode to a close. Let us know what your thoughts were on the Switch 2 trailer. What do you think some of the things that we've spotted could be or would be? And your thoughts on some of the potential applications of some of the little new gimmicks that Nintendo has brought into this system. Let us know down below. Also, be sure to share, like, subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. We'll see you in the next video.